Our first speaker is Shaykh Faraz Rabbani. He is a researcher and teacher of the Islamic sciences specializing in Islamic law. Having spent his childhood in Canada, England, Spain, and Egypt, he returned to Canada and obtained a bachelor's in economics and commerce from U of T in 1997 on a full scholarship. While at U of T, he was active with the MSA on both local and national level. After university, he spent 10 years seeking knowledge overseas, studying and teaching Islamic sciences in Damascus, Amman, Karachi, and under leading Islamic scholars. He then returned to Canada and is currently the educational director of SeekersGuidance and Seekers Hub. Shaykh Faraz is a partner and legal advisor with Straightway Ethical Advisory and has a number of published books and articles. He lives in Mississauga with his wife and 3 children. Without further ado, please welcome Shaykh Faraz Rabbani.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of God, the merciful and compassionate, and send God's blessings and peace on His final prophet, Muhammad, and his followers, and all those who seek the way of excellence in this life. The topic of economics is awkward to talk about, especially when you put it together with ethics, because much of what we see of economic activity is sorely lacking in ethics. And a lot of people are embarrassed actually to admit that I studied economics or have a finance degree, because it's not exactly doesn't exactly have a very good reputation. But economics is a very central human activity because it is how one pursues one's interests in this life, right? It's a study of the human pursuit of their worldly interests. But when we talk about Islamic ethics related to finance and economics, something immediately comes to mind. What comes to mind when someone says Islamic, what are the ethics of economic activity in Islam? What's the first thing that would come to mind? Interest. What is the discipline, the contemporary discipline that deals with that? It's in the news, it's everywhere. Islamic finance. And when people say Islamic finance, what do they typically mean by Islamic finance? What do they mean? Yeah, interest-free loans, right? Interest-free loans or, home financing and the like. And this is really an injustice because, firstly, if you look at it in terms of home financing, which is one of the primary concerns people always have. I work for an online answer service, and probably 9 out of 10, or maybe 19 out of 20 questions that come related to matters of money are about home financing. And home financing is itself not a particularly praiseworthy activity, in that if you look at the Islamic ethics related to money, one of the most emphasized matters, not just in Islam, but right across different religions and different human civilizations, historically has been the discouragement of debt. Right? They say the saying, a fate worse than debt, is probably an older statement than saying a fate worse than death. Right? Because death is more harmful. Right? And this has been true even of Western society. The warning against being in debt is clear and manifest. Our very own Margaret Atwood, whom Mayor Ford, thank God is not our mayor here in Mississauga, who he doesn't really particularly care to know, but Margaret Atwood has this wonderful series of Massey lectures that she delivered called Payback, about debt. And this is a concern right across human civilizations. Part of the arrogance of modernity is to regard anything that is old or traditional or from human history to be outdated. Right? But this is very myopic because these traditions that people have settled upon are born out through human experience, through much thought and understanding and wisdom. And one of these wisdoms is that the harmful nature of debt, that ultimately debt is crippling not just for individuals, but it is also, when excessive, crippling for societies. And we're seeing, we're living through the implications of that. And the problem with saying that there's something called Islamic finance is that somehow you consider that as long as the financing that you seek for whatever kind of debt you're taking on, whether it be for financing your home or your car or some other purchase that you have in mind. Like yesterday I bought my wife the new iPad, which is not the iPad 3. I was actually on the Apple site. My wife asked me, are you watching the broadcast or following the live tweeting? I said no. I was actually on the Apple site clicking refresh because the store was offline during the announcement. So as soon as it went live, I was there, and I was probably one of the first people in Canada to pre-order an iPad. But in line with the ethics that we're going to be talking about today, I didn't pre-order it for myself. I pre-ordered it for my wife. And then I thought, should I buy one for myself? And I said, no, I shouldn't, because I'm actually fine with my iPad 2. I'm very happy, and it'd be actually too much of a hassle to switch over. So, Islamic finance, as a discipline, is simply seeing what are modes of finance that do not go against Islamic law, right, that do not contravene Islamic law. But it is a misnomer in that, when you put the term Islamic, it's somehow stating that this is the right moral choice. Can I pick on you, Sharia?
Go ahead.
Okay. So let's say Sharia decides to study some Islamic law. So he begins with the Islamic law of worship. And one of the things that discussing the Islamic law of worship is what is the minimum dress for men and what's the minimum dress for women. So Sharia is presently surprised that the minimum dress for men, what is it? From navel to knee. Right? So he decided to start the Mississauga navel to knee society, or the Minx, right? Mississauga Islamic navel to knee society, Minx. And what they do is they decide to buy 25 towels. Right? 25 towels. Why? Because they want to promote Islamic dress. Right? Because he read in a book of fiqh, the book of Islamic law, that the awra, the nakedness of a man, is that which is between his navel and his knees. So he said, okay, I'm going to make sure that people are Islamically dressed. So he buys 25 towels, and he says, I'm going to do it even better than that minimum. Right? It'll be above the navel and below the knees. Okay? And he convinced a whole bunch of people, Abdul Rafi and others, that look, let's put on these towels and go around Mississauga to the different mosques. We want to promote Islamic dress. Is that Islamic dress? Is it Islamic dress? Of course not, right? Because just because something is within the limits of religious law, just as if something is just within the limits of Canadian law, doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Right? So that's why the ethics of Islam, when it comes to economics or finance or money matters, are far beyond and far wider than mere Islamic economics. Islamic economics is important at several levels because it seeks to shield us from the greatest of harms. Amongst them is the harm of usury, right? The usury of riba. Right? Bank interest is a form of usury. And you see its grave harm not really manifest just at the level of individuals, although the financial crisis manifested that. I mean, particularly down south with the millions of people whose homes were foreclosed and who lost hundreds of thousands of dollars of their wealth or were drowned in debt. And the harm was manifest at that level. But sometimes someone thinks that what's so bad? Why would God deem it sinful for me to take out a conventional mortgage? And the reason is that when we look at benefit and harm is not just looked at the benefit and harm for individuals. The benefit of harm for individuals. For someone, it might actually be a good financial decision, purely materially, for them to take out a conventional mortgage. But when we look at the bigger picture, right, if you step back and look at planet Earth, you don't have to go all the way to the moon, but just from 50,000 feet up, and you look at humanity and look, what is it that mires people in desperate poverty, right? That causes people to be stuck in structural underdevelopment, entire countries to be so cripplingly in debt that their entire GDP cannot cover their annual interest payments, let alone ever go and repay their debts. If you look at those who are stuck in poverty and the kind of debt loads they have that they're stuck in, if you look at and you see it all across Mississauga, all these money marts and other places, right, where people give payday loans, and just go and look at the terms of those payday loans. And if you just hang out at the money mart for half an hour, as I sometimes have to because I send money to people overseas and stuff, and you just sit and watch. How many people come to these places? And look at the terms, how much they pay on a month just to have money at the beginning of the month. So at the end of the month, they're even worse off than they would normally be. Right? That debt that cripples. Right? And we see things like the prohibition of riba at the broader level, dealing with that. But underlying that, and in order to understand those specifics of what's called Islamic finance, what is the basis? What is the basis of Islamic law and ethics in general? And what is the basic principle around which Islamic ethics revolves? It is summarized in one verse of the Noble Qur'an. Anyone venture to guess what that one verse would be? It's a verse in which God tells us what the concern of believers is. And that concern is expressed by their asking for three matters that can be reduced to two, and really they come back to one central matter. They ask God for something. What is that? What is that thing? It's a supplication, it's a dua, and most of you probably know it. Most of you who are Muslim probably recite it regularly every day. What's that supplication? Yes. It's from the 200 or 201st verse of the second chapter of the Qur'an. God Almighty says, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. That, O Lord, grant us the good of this life and the good of the next, and protect us from the punishment of the fire. And there's much more to this verse than one may immediately think. It's just a supplication for good. But what is noteworthy here is that when you seek the good, how do you seek it? Right? Firstly, you do not say, "O Lord, grant me the good." Right? "O Lord, grant me the good." You ask for the good in the collective sense. Right? So when you're seeking the good in life, and this is what is the concern of the believer? The concern of the believer is to seek the good. But how? رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً. O Lord, grant us the good. And your degree of righteousness is to the extent of how encompassing your concern and pursuit of the good is that you're not just seeking the good for yourself, but you're seeking the good as expansively as possible. Not just me, myself, and I, not just me, my family, and I, not just me, myself, my family, my community, and I, right? You have wide horizons. But then you don't just seek the good of this, that is immediate. You seek the good of this life, but you also seek the good of the next. And so you seek material good and you seek spiritual good. You don't seek that simply for yourself, but you seek it for everyone. And it's more expansive than that, because the nature of the human being is that they're hasty in their decision making and in their choices. Right? You make choices that are immediately expedient. So you feel hungry, you know that there's a new hero burger at Dundas, just west of Trafalgar. So you blow your money twice a week there, and you don't save for your retirement. So when you reach 65, you ended up eating a lot of hero burgers, but then you go hungry. Right? And we are given to be hasty. So part of seeking the good for oneself and for others is not just to seek the immediate good, immediate fulfillment, but also to seek the good of this world in the long term. And not just for oneself, but for others. Right? And this comprehensive view of seeking the good is very powerful. It governs how we deal with other people. That how does one give in charity? The best of charity is not just a charity that alleviates an immediate need. Right? Someone is in desperate poverty, we alleviate their need. That's one kind of good that we seek for others. But superior to that is charity that is of ongoing, lasting, long-term benefit. And that comes from this concern for the comprehensive concern for the good in this life, but also in the next. And in this sense, when we seek to maximize the good, we are not simply maximizing a whole series of worldly good. Right? That I maximize my own good and Shariar maximizes his own good. Right? But we seek to maximize the good for ourselves and for others. And this summarizes the reality of religion. Because what is religion? Religion is sincere concern. Right? It is sincere concern for God, and it is sincere concern for God's creation. Right? The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Ad-Deenun Nasiha, religion is sincere concern. And he said, none of you believes until they wish for others as they wish for themselves. And Allah tells us in the Qur'an that you will not attain righteousness until you give of what you love. You give to others of what you love for yourself. So this has a whole number of practical manifestations. Right? To see practical expressions of that comprehensive concern for the good that Islamic ethics seeks to promote. One is in work. Right? In the work that you do, in the career choice that you make. Most people choose between jobs or even career paths by one variable. What is that variable? How much you'll make. And that choice ends up diminishing your personal well-being. Why? It happens all the time. It breeds short-sightedness. I see it all the time. Couples live apart for years. Why? Because each will make a few $1,000s more in a different city. Because they're both working. Instead of saying that no, our collective happiness will be greater if we live together. I mean, why else are we married? People will live apart from their parents, from their friends, from their community, from different causes that they were involved in, different activism that they were engaged in. Why? Just for a few pennies more, right? For a few dollars more, right? Maybe a few thousand, but that's not what maximizes one's good. Right? So when one makes decisions, one should look at them with that comprehensive sense of good. Similarly, career paths. Don't just look at the variable of which career path will make you the most money, but rather which career path one will bring you the greatest good, that will bring you happiness, fulfillment, contentment. That will be of good to others, that this career choice will enable you to be with family. That will enable you to be a benefit to others. So you wanted to start making documentaries about different social causes, but instead you decided, no, I'll just become a corporate lawyer, because it'll make me more money. Now you might be in a situation where you might have to do that, because you have to support your parents and your whole extended family depends on you, for whatever reason. So okay, but that's based not just on the material variable, but where the greatest good exists. So make your career choices on the basis of where the greatest good is. Right? Make other decisions looking not just at personal, material, immediate fulfillment, but the consideration should be, where is the greatest good? Another example would be when we buy. Right? You look at, well, I have some money in the bank, or I can go into debt a little bit, so let me buy the new iPad. And it's now 4G and all this kind of stuff. $800, I can afford it. I'll be connected wherever I am. But rather, when you look at how you spend your money, consider, what are you buying? Like, what are you spending your money on? Is this the best thing you could spend your money on? That will be of the greatest benefit to you and to others. Also, whom are you supporting when you buy? Right? Is this a company that makes ethical choices itself? Where are you buying from? It's very significant. You could be supporting some mega corporation that is completely unaccountable, or you could be supporting those who are local in your community. A good example of that, my parents, who just live down the road here in Mississauga, they buy from right by our complex of townhouses is this Italian store. And they buy from there and ask, why? Because, Freshco is much cheaper, and they're just 100 meters away. He says, no, but they're local, so they have rights over us. So my parents buy my dad actually gets his hair cut from this Italian grocer. Why? To support someone local. Ask me, but you'd save money buying that. You just don't understand anything, do you? And so you look at what you're maximizing in the decisions that you make. Like none of you. And then when you buy, do you just buy for personal satisfaction? No. Right? God Almighty tells us that you will not attain righteousness until you spend of what you love. So, when you like something, don't just get it for yourself. You like something, buy it for a friend. Right? Or if you're not going to do that because you want one for yourself, buy one for another person. And this strengthens relations and has all kinds of other positive societal effects. Right? And more generally, how do you spend your money? Right? What are you trying to maximize in your spending? It's not simply that you're trying to maximize your personal net value and your personal fleeting satisfaction, but you're trying to promote the greatest good. So be of the people who give gifts, right? Who spends in charity, right? And who looks that how can I direct my wealth in a manner that will be of sustained general benefit. Right? And that's where we see institutions that prophetic teachings come to promote, such as endowments, right? Which are called awqaf. And these endowments are ways of sustained societal benefit, whether that benefit is religious or just public. Endowments to provide water for animals, to take care of retired animals, because you can't just kill your farm animals that are now too old to do farm work or to provide milk, but rather, while they're alive, you benefited from them, now you have to take care of them. And how do you take care of them? The farmer says, what do I have to do with this elderly animal? There are strong institutions of endowments to support such endeavors. How you invest your money. Right? You see, okay, I'm very limited. When I'm stuck in the corporate world, in that concrete jungle of the corporate world, so they say, no, I'm going to be independent. I'm going to start a business. Right? So I'll have the independence of how I'll spend my time, of how I will work, of how I will strive to be a benefit to society. And this is one of the reasons why in Muslim society it was people of spiritual concern who were the most successful traders. Because they found the marketplace, their corporate world back then, to be stifling. So they said, how can we promote the greatest good? They said, by Stepping aside, not just stepping aside and retreating to the mountains, stepping aside and directing their work, their time, their wealth to ways that would maximize benefit for them, for their families, for their communities, for society, and for all God's creation. And this is one of the reasons why who spread Islam around the world? It was traders, because they had this concern for excellence. And that's something that is at the heart of Islamic ethics. It is that what it strives to maximize is the greatest, widest, and most lasting good, not just in this life, but also in the next, not just for you as an individual, but also for your family, for your community, for society, for all God's creation. And it is manifest how? Not just in some theory, yes, I care. No, it's manifest in the choices that you make. That when you make your choices, ask yourself the question, not just, do I want this? Because that's the thinking of the consuming animal. And the consuming animal is consumed by corporations. But rather, you look at what is of the greatest good for yourself and for others. Right? And those are the choices that actually bring happiness, not just into your own lives, but in the lives of others. We ask God Almighty that He make us of those who are granted the success to have the right concern, which is the concern, the comprehensive concern for good, and who manifest that concern in the choices that we make, in the practical choices that we make. And how do you learn these? Learn about the prophetic example. The Prophet gave us very simple ways of manifesting this concern. That if you buy something, buy another for another person. If you cook something, he said if you cook a meat dish, put a little extra water. Right? So you make more sauce and share it with a neighbor. You bake some muffins, buy them for someone else. You ordered a pizza, you ordered 2 because you have family over, order a 3rd. And send one to the neighbors, or invite them over. Right? And look at other decisions that you make, and strive to maximize the good in them. And all praise is due to Allah.